in relation to that project, it was really about 1999, and I've seen that in Canberra and the media in general that it was an issue about native title that was being absolutely politicised and taken way out of context. And I sort of know the experience of myself as an Aboriginal person living in an Aboriginal community. You know, the real story and the sort of suffering that people have to endure in Aboriginal communities. So it was about me wanting to just, and some urgency about it. Actually, I just got up and within a couple of months, I was sort of there trying to and really want to help them and be a voice for them. So, and I'm really glad I did. Yeah, it was different. Again, but there's a good part to that as well, as opposed to my normal long-term sort of input, research and approaching methods and input into the whole project. But I've always found that through an urgency of being able to do that work, that good work usually comes from that urgency about really wanting to be an active, play an active role. And so I think, it was similar when I did the prison series in 1993. There was a great urgency. I just got up and I just really wanted to do something about it. And that all happened fairly quickly at the beginning of 1993 when it was the Australian Indigenous Year celebration. So I knew those government departments would be more receptive to me being able to do a project. So yeah, again, just really wanted to, again, as part of that documentation of our social history, as a country. So it's so important to be able to document all of that, because in the long run, photography is proof. It shows that we are here in the way we live. And through my whole approach from the beginning of my documentary approach, it was about, taking my work very, very seriously and responsibly, because it dealt with that social history. So seeking the truth and authenticity and integrity of the image as well was very important. And I took on that humanitarian role quite seriously in the mid-80s, actually. Well, morally speaking and aesthetically, I really wanted to be close to. I wanted sort of large scale portraits that spoke, in a sense, visually, and so and I've never seen it done before on this large, bellows camera, well, old wooden and brass camera, 4x5 format. Um, that was, this close to from the subject, and I was sitting right beside, so it was actually like a very almost touching knees. So it was a very sort of intimate portrait sessions, and but the reason look, it was risk taking, and I think that all artists really have to do that at some stages in their life. Um, it was one of those projects when I took a lot of risk in the way I even went about doing my work there. Um, it was really, yeah, it was risk taking on large format, very close, and it was really, and I've never seen it before, and I really wanted those images to be printed big too, that close up and on a big negative that would be sharp with great resolution and showing the textures on the face. And I actually did some testing in Hobart of one of my cousins who was as dark as those people up there, actually. So when I used my spot meter, I knew exactly what sort of tone to actually put that and set my meter and the camera to. So a lot of testing was done to sort of underexpose the film and overdevelop to increase the texture of the surface of the skin. So again, lots involved in the craft making of it that I emphasise in all my work. Craft is a major part of my work in the way I go about things. And and photography is always about two things, and that is vision and craft. So within that, you come out with images that, are particularly exciting. It's got straight to the point and the reason why I was there. And I intended to take a lot more pictures, but those are the ones I concentrated on in the long run. And what was interesting too was I was there for about 6 weeks, I think, 7 weeks. And in the last few days that I was there, all this time I'd spent just talking, engaging with them, becoming friends. And that was really important about building friendships in portrait making anyway. And so they came to me on the last, I had a big light tent that I'd made up from PVC piping and a big large white sheets, because I knew I was going to be working in the harsh Queensland northern light. And so I took this big canvas bag of all that and set it up in the backyard. And it wasn't until the last 3 days that those 5 people came to me in the house that I was staying. And I knew, explained to them all what I wanted to do. And I knew they'd come to me on their own time, and so it's that patience, persistence and passion that really paid off if you want to do serious work, and it really all paid off. And so it was amazing. They came to me, and the picture of old Joe, I took that in the last minutes, 5 minutes of light before the day, the next morning I left. And so it was amazing. Everything just came together because it was about those friendships and about really highlighting their voice. And I wanted to go back and tell the rest of Australia. It was interesting. Excuse the pun, but I was fairly well focused on exactly what I wanted. The way that I'd in my studio and on the wall, and the way I sort of, and we've got to remember, I'm constructing a narrative from cultural memory as well, so it's really important. So I chose those locations and those and we simply call them story places, and so I knew, it's really important the way we go about constructing narrative. It's really important. And I read a lot of critical theory in relation to this as well, different viewpoints of people. And so the way I construct my narratives is really very, very deeply considered, and a very long approach to it, and what I need to bring to the work. So it's a long thing, but it's really interesting in a way. Sort of, I guess, documentary image making is a very serious and quite an ethical field of photography, in the way we sort of seek truth and authenticity. So in photographing the social history, you've just got to get it right, but they need to actually be a constructive narrative from us as Aboriginal people. That is so important. And along the ways of those photographs too, I just wanted to put that sort of emotion to history as well. In the meeting place of Maynard and George Robinson, it was about, I simply called it traitor. So it's about that emotion of history. We all get a sense of history looking at old photographs from, hairstyles and clothes and whatever. And but we can't get that real sense of the emotion of the time. So I thought about that in a way people will view my work in, 50, 100 years. It's about, this is the way people felt at that particular place on that particular site. It was it's a really significant meeting place that changed the course of history. So again, all those individual pictures added up to a very strong narrative. So I knew I had to go to certain points to cover this kind of narrative that backed up the last one and make it more, and do some kind of text to it and actually extend the narrative more than a visual one. So it's they're always really deeply considered and really a tremendous amount of work goes into it. And so I take a lot of care with the work too. And so it's just an interesting process that I've come to love. very heavy research, really. But my research more revolves around the photographic approach of how, as I said, always go back to the way we construct the narrative um, from cultural memory. But it's really about, and I used to go like into the archives and things. I've got a lot of, I've got a beautiful library actually that I'm very proud of. And but so I used to go into deep sort of historical research, and I sort of went off base there a bit at some stage. I said, no, we've got to, I'll go talk to my elders. And of course, that was the best and the greatest research of all. So it changed fairly quickly in my career, and even during the beginning of that project in 2005. But I started changing my ways a little bit and following my heart with cultural memory and with a real sort of depth to the construction of the narrative. So it became, for a fairly intense period of, and some of those, one of those photographs I picked, or one or two I picked out an actual quote, a historical quote, from a long time ago in some of the journals and that I'd read. But that was just to highlight the attitude of the times and quote something sort of our response to it, really, or my response to it. I think that was up in the location of Wabalena on Flinders Island, the site of a big mission that was there in the 1830s. And a lot of our people were taken from, our people were taken from the traditional homelands, as we call it, of course, northeast Tasmania. So that was one of the first missions, and it's a huge site that has a lot of and is preserved as such as the old mission site, Bibaletta. Um, and we go there quite often as Aboriginal people from all the islands, and it's a very important part of our lives, really, about going and giving, saying a prayer and doing a reaffirming of the very reason that we stand here on top of you today and celebrate that, we carry your spirit. And that's a very important thing for us to do as Aboriginal people. So all these sort of things come into the making of pictures. And I walked that stretch of the beach there, just over the hill in the same location, same site, Wabalena. And I'd walked it for about a year up and down, thinking about that portrayal of what I really wanted to say about the I was thinking about the previous image of death in exile. All these things have got to come together. And I really thought about the broken heart. Then I remember coming across that quote from the 8 men who wrote to Queen Victoria. It was called, in a document called the Generate Petition. So they wrote this sort of protest letter to the Queen of Victoria. And that first line was just a quote from a paragraph that they'd written. When we left our land, our home, we were plenty of people. We are now but a little one. So that, to me, just sort of hit home to the heart straight away. So I continued walking the beach up and down for a full year, I'd say, until I got to that point where I said, there's no other way to do it. I have to put myself in that picture and in that place, because me and my wife and our friends and families, we all go there. We all paddle around in that same location, getting pennywinkles and werritas and king tides. We get abalone. So and we stand there too. We stand there. On a very clear day, you can look all the way to the top of the northeast point of Tasmania, which is our original homeland, of course. So we feel all that. We feel it, and so in a way, it could be done in no other way. It was really important that I really sort of try to address that sort of the understanding and the suffering of others and their pain of longing, and from their own home country, and placing this under this sort of government rule, of a brutal rule, and they were mostly killed and died of disease. So it was really a very sad period. but yeah, it's about standing on that site and thinking about their longing, which becomes our longing. Um, the way we feel about that location, that site, and that place. And for Aboriginal people in that cultural memory, it's just a part of us anyway.